pass around one of Chuck's photos of the detention pond in Holman Woods. I'm gonna go off script a little bit. So I'll probably ramble and.
Dale, I don't know if everybody here knows the purpose and what the detention pond is.
My name's Dale Oppenheimer. I moved into Holman Woods in 1998. After I moved into the subdivision, I was doing some research and I saw some of the recorded subdivision drawings that there was a detention basin. I'll give you a little bit of history on detention basins. In I think it was 1973, the federal government created the Clean Water Act. That progressed over the years, and in, I think it was 1993, the federal government said they were going to require the whole country to have an NPDES permit, which stands for the National Pollution Discharge Elimination System. The purpose, there are a couple reasons that the government's doing it, and you don't have to like EPA. I don't like everything EPA does, but there were several reasons. Actually, one, pollution. They were trying to prevent pollution in the creeks, but also erosion and silting of the creeks and rivers, and to prevent flooding. Well, anyway, as I was looking at these drawings for Holman Woods, you know, I found the recorded drawings of a detention basin. I did a little bit more research, and I came across a Holman Woods Homeowners Association document that was recorded at the Hamilton County Courthouse. The fact that it's recorded doesn't mean that it's in effect. For it to be in effect, it has to go to the state and the right paperwork. There's a procedure for a homeowners association to come into existence. So anyway, as I was thinking about the detention basin that I saw, I started wondering, how is this thing, if you look at the language on the plats, it goes into detail on what the responsibilities of the property owner, or who maintains it, and how it's supposed to be taken care of. And on the plat, it is very specific. It says it's the property owner that the detention basin lies on. By the way, there's detention basins and there's retention basins. We have detention basins where it slowly releases the water, and after it's quit raining, the water slowly is gone. Retention would be like, it was Indian, next door to Holman Woods, there's one that always has water in it. That would be a retention basin. So anyway, my question is, who's going to be responsible for these detention basins? And on the plat, it says property owner, and it specifically says that Hamilton County and the Village of Cleves has no responsibility for it. Typically on deeds, when you purchase a home, you sign the paperwork, and there's usually a reference in there that says, subject to all documents of record, which would be the documents that I'm talking about, the plats and the Homeowners Association document. So I guess, why do I care? Initially, I've got a vivid imagination. I pictured these detention ponds failing. In other words, they get clogged up. What they do is they let water out slowly. There's a small pipe at the bottom. If that pipe gets clogged, blocked, and the water starts rising in these detention basins, maybe 10 feet of water, say the dam part of the detention basin were to fail and let loose, and I'm thinking, I could see a wall of water going down, hitting downtown, and someone getting hurt bad, maybe a house washed away. Maybe that's not gonna happen, probably will never happen, but it was something that it was in the back of my mind. I checked with lawyers, and I was told that because of the language on the documents that are recorded, that I had nothing to worry about. And that may be true, but we know how lawyers are. If something bad were to happen, they're going to sue everybody they can. So I may not lose, but I can picture myself spending a whole lot of money on attorney fees. For whatever it's worth, Coleman Woods, the best I can count, we have 5 detention basins. The detention basins are located on property owned by 15 different individuals. According to the documents and attorneys that I've spoken with, those property owners are responsible for maintenance and care of those detention basins. To me, that didn't seem right. It seemed unfair that the water that goes into the detention basins comes from throughout the subdivision. The streets, the driveways, the roof, the water that drains out from the roofs. Everybody in the subdivision is putting water in these detention basins. Yet the owners of the detention basins are required to pay for that? That didn't seem right to me. Anyway, so trying to figure out who's responsible for it and who monitors this. I knew Hamilton County had a stormwater district, and I thought that was a logical place to look. And I went on their rules, regulations on the internet, and they had a document there that spells everything out. And one of the things that they said was that the municipality, the village, or whatever, was supposed to have an enforcing officer. Okay, so, I mean, who's going to monitor that these detention basins are being maintained? Be the enforcing officer. So I checked with Mr. Rahal, and Mr. Rahal says, no, the Village of Cleves has no responsibility. We pulled out of the Hamilton County Stormwater District. They aren't members, paying members. So, Mr. Rahal is saying that Cleves has no responsibility. And by the way, initially Cleves joined the Hamilton County Stormwater District in 2003. They exited, got out of it in 2013. It was effective in 2014. So, okay, if Cleves doesn't have the enforcing official, then who does? Who's responsible to make sure that everybody's protected? So I'm looking online, and sure enough, EPA pops up, Ohio EPA. And I contacted them, and I asked them this question. They said, well, Hamilton County is going to be responsible. I said, okay. I called Hamilton County, and Hamilton County says, no, please pulled out. This has been going on for like 2 or 3 years now. I guess Hamilton County contacted the state. Cleves initially was under Hamilton County Stormwater District's umbrella. They covered most of Hamilton County. But when Cleves pulled out in 2014, since 2014 till the present day, Cleves has been in violation of state law. It's interesting. I watched one of our council people being sworn in at a council meeting. And they had to take an oath, and they said, "Do you swear to abide by the Constitution of the United States, all federal and state laws?" "I do." But since 2014, Cleve's just been thumbing their nose at the state law and federal law too, for that matter. So anyway, Mr. Rahal says the rules didn't apply. He said that they pulled out before he was hired, so he didn't know all the facts, and that's true. I think he was hired in maybe or in 2015, maybe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right before I left.
Okay, so I've gone over that.
Did you ever secure a copy of the ordinance that was passed, taking us out of that district?
I've got, there were two ordinances done on the same evening. Number 8, they adopted Hamilton County Stormwater Regulation Rules and Regulations. Number 9, they withdrew from the Stormwater District. And I've got them. Anybody wants a copy of anything which I speak to?
That was on the recommendation of JMA.
You signed it, I believe.
Well, yes, I did.
Okay,
I
so-
had to sign everything that the council adopted, but I think that it was gonna be replaced with something, and it was gonna be cheaper, but I don't know what happened after that.
That JMA was supposed to take over the money.
That's what I thought.
So this is, I can theorize why we pulled out. You can come to your own conclusion. But I think the consulting engineer with the village got together and they sold the village on, we can do this for you cheaper than
I'm
what
sure
we're
that's
paying.
what it was.
But for whatever it's worth, back then, the cost of being a member with the Stormwater District was like $7 a year. The last time I looked, and if we rejoin, this will be put on your tax bill. There'll be an additional less than $9 per year. So for $9 or $8 back then, $7, whatever it was, we pulled out. We're supposed to have gone with the consulting engineer, and it never happened. For whatever reason, I don't know. And because of that, there's been no enforcement, nobody doing what should have been done. So, and by the way, why is it important that these things be maintained? Downtown Cleves already has a fair amount of flooding on a pretty regular basis, actually. If they didn't have these detention basins, I really believe that downtown would have a lot of serious problems. Basement floodings and roadway flooding. So there is a valid reason, as much whatever you think about EPA or OEPA, there's a valid reason for having these detention basins, and they need to exist. And by law, these things cannot go away. They have to remain forever, perpetuity. They're there.
Our building down here flooded twice after the retention ponds were put in, and it just flies down that hill like, it looks like a waterfall. In between the buildings down there and down that street and into the basement of our municipal building. It was like just a waterfall coming down the couple times that it happened while I was there.
And I don't know that water is coming.
And it may not be, but it comes from up the hill somewhere.
But Morgan Creek does take our water. All the detention basins most all of it go down there. There's a little bit on, I think, the first street on the left hand corner from Coleman Woods. There's a detention pond back there that may push the water down.
Yeah, I don't know that this came from Coleman Woods, but I'm just saying, without the retention ponds, we probably would have it coming from up even farther than that.
For whatever it's worth, I was at a continuing education class, and I spoke with the engineer who did Coleman Woods, who prepared the drawings and did the design for it. And I explained the situation to him, and I said, who's responsible for these detention basins? He said, well, it's the homeowners association. I said, there is no homeowners association. He said, well, they're supposed to have been. A little bit about homeowners association. If you read that document, and if anybody wants to read it, provided, I'll email it to you. The detention, or the homeowners association was supposed to happen on a certain date or after a certain percentage of the homes were sold, 90% or something. Unfortunately, how were people to know that? Who would initiate that, getting a homeowners association?
Can I answer that question for you? Because it should have been Drees. Drees has currently a person that's assigned to do that. Now, they will not give an answer as to why it didn't happen for Coleman Woods. And I can tell you the attitude that I got from them was, that's your problem now. So they really want somebody in Coleman Woods to stand up and go, hey guys, we need to have this homeowners association that's supposed to have a $1 million liability policy. I wonder what that 1 million's for. If you think about it, there's not much up there. There's no swimming pool, there's none of that stuff. What else would it be but flooding the village of Cleves? Okay, so honestly, I know you talked to Mr. Ray Hall. I have not talked about that issue, but I don't know there was any interest of a community meeting or anything like that, that quite frankly, a village council ought to be interested in for the entire village to make sure that all residents are safe.
You know, there's not a whole lot in Coleman Woods that a homeowners association would need to be involved with. I mean, if you wanted a homeowners association to worry about the color of somebody's paint or the fence in the front yard, I guess you could do that, but it doesn't have to be that way. A homeowners association could just address the important issues like the detention basins or the entrance to the subdivision. Dries stuck that on a few individuals to maintain those, and that's wrong. I think, you know, if we had a homeowners association for maybe $100 a year, maybe the first year or two, $200 a year for everybody, the detention basins could be maintained and taken care of. The front entrance could be taken care of. It's not right for the property owners to have to maintain these rocks and bushes that, if it were me, I'd bulldoze it out and plant grass seed. All right, just a few more things. I'm babbling here. The whole situation is a mess, especially with these detention basins. First of all, OEPA, they dropped the ball. 8 years without a permit, they didn't know that. Like I said, there's already flooding in downtown Cleves. You know, does OEPA have any responsibility? I don't know, they weren't doing their job. Secondly, Dries did a terrible disservice to all of us by not creating a homeowners association. And they could have done that before they left. They could have started it, and it would have been in place once they pulled it out.
You know, Dale, you and I have talked about this, and I thought about it. When I was we bought in the second phase of Coleman Woods. And the girl that worked in the office, Dawn was her name, I don't remember her last name. She represented Coleman Woods, or Dries. She said that there was a homeowners association in place and gave me a sheet of paper that said what you could do and what you couldn't do. And I remember one of the things was you couldn't have an above ground pool. And the other thing was all fences had to be behind the house and could only be split rail. And I don't remember the other things, but those two things I remember being on that sheet. But they represented that there was a homeowners association in place.
And I don't recall that, when I bought it. I do recall.
They enforced the covenants. She did enforce the covenants at that time.
Well, the covenants and restrictions are also shown on this cover sheet of the plat of the subdivision. And I think that's what I maybe was shown. You couldn't have an antenna for cable or TV and the pool that you mentioned. But a lot of people I spoke to had no idea that these detention basins even exist, and the people whose property they lie, they had no idea what the responsibilities were.
I'd like to share with that because you, as you know, one of them is on my property. And it's a mess. You just saw pictures of it. It's a total of 4 of us that share it. And we were told that we would never have to worry about that by Don Brogine, okay? That they were gonna handle it all. We never had to worry about it. Then they pull out, but does anybody notify us and say, hey, we're leaving, you better have this inspected? No. So I had no clue.
Was it ever represented to you when you bought the property that it was going to be your responsibility?
That's what I just said. No, they said no, never. That it was on the property. We never had to worry about it. They'd always take care of it. And we're not the only ones. There's other people that have told me the same thing.
I think the government recognizes this problem. It's not just Coleman Woods, it's everywhere. The Hamilton County Stormwater District now has changed the language of the rules and regulations. It says you have to have a written agreement with whoever's going to maintain these detention basins, so they know exactly what's expected of them. But that wasn't in place when I moved in, when you moved in. It wasn't there. So, you know, Dries, although they should recognize that they dropped the ball. They didn't have any kind of agreement with the property owners, other than maybe some deception on what was
It
required.
happens all the time and something needs to be done with laws that they can't just pull out without.
Where you guys benefited is that you lived in the village of Cleves. So you could follow our zoning laws, our zoning regulations, and for that reason, you didn't need a homeowners association. So I had a lot of people come down and ask me for a pool permit. And I said, sure, you know, because we never got anything that said there was a homeowners with restrictions. You live in the village of Cleves, we allow pools, this is the fence you have to have. So you were able to follow all of our guidelines and rules for our zoning. Therefore, you didn't miss the homeowners association for that aspect of it. Because you had one in your
privacy
government.
fence in the back, I couldn't do it, but now I found out I could. I had to follow their stuff.
Yeah, village of Cleves zoning ordinance would have allowed it, and told you how high it had to be.
Yeah.
Okay, so anyway, Dries kind of did us wrong 2 ways. They didn't initiate it, the homeowners association, and they didn't have any kind of agreement with the parties that are involved. And by the way, to become a homeowners association, I don't know if I already said it, you have to vote on it, and there has to be 51% of the owners agree to it before there can be a homeowners association. So it will probably, unfortunately, never happen. Okay, so the EPA did their disservice to us. Dries really stuck it to us. And thirdly, Cleves, I had mentioned this enforcing official. Had Cleves been doing what they're required by law to do, and having this person who actually monitors these detention basins, and they come out and say, hey, there's a problem here, that they've got weeds growing around it, or it's getting a lot of silt, you need to, whoever's responsible, whether it's the property owner or Dries, somebody needs to take care of this. But that wasn't done. And I think after time, and there were some other issues that came up that maybe aggravated the situation more. But anyway, had Cleves been doing their job and been honest and told the truth, we wouldn't be in the situation we're in now. There's two of the that, you sent the pond around? The
Yes.
Picture, okay.
Yeah.
There's two of the
Looks like
basins.
a boat next to it.
If you look at aerial photography, Google or Cages, you can see two of the ponds have failed or retaining water. And that's not supposed to happen. After so many hours after a heavy rainfall, they should be empty. You look at the aerial photography, they're ponds. So anyway, one last thing. I spoke with 7 of my neighbors about the Cleves water bills. 5 of the 7 says, this can't be right. Way too much. In fact, Mr. Natasha there, his was like, what, 10 times what it should have been?
80,000 gallons for just my wife and I.
Another neighbor had.
And we weren't
40-something
even home.
houses.
We were on vacation, gone 3 of the weeks that we got billed.
What I would suggest you do is you look at your old bills. You can't go by dollar amount necessarily, but look at your usage. Something was really screwy. I think they'd like to think that they fixed it with these new meters that they're putting in. But you need to go back and look at your usage for the last year and compare quarters. Spring quarter to last year's spring quarter, fall quarter to last year's fall quarter, the previous year. Several $100s on yours, Jim?
Right. And that's the 3rd time that it happened to me. So if you don't pay attention to a higher bill than normal and look at the usage, you're getting hammered.
Well, my bill is usually for years, $230, $240 something a month, or every 3 months, for 2 people, which we thought was high. My husband's called, she says that's what it is. It was $160, last time. I mean, it dropped. I was like, wow.
You have a question over here, then I wanted to move on, because we've only got about
Okay.
a half hour here, so.
Those bills were the winter months, which raises your sewage for the next 9 months. People don't understand, some people don't understand that. Okay. Yeah, because mine was sky high. It went from, it was cut in half. And then that cut my sewage bill for the next 3 bills. It cut it down a lot. So in Coleman Woods, you gotta watch December, January, February. And here they read them so late, last time, and they were all out of whack. My neighbor across the street, they had him, he lived by himself at 15,000. They come back and reread it, it was 3,000. And that reduced his sewage bill for the next 9 months.
And the sewer bill's what's expensive.
Yeah, that's what you gotta watch.
Ron, did you wanna tell me a little bit what you had to deal with?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak about retention ponds, and you mentioned Morgan Creek. I've lived in Cleveland 76 years. I've lived in the same house 54 of those years, and it's the house right across from the old grade school. Morgan Street is both sides of Morgan Creek right there. The retention ponds you're talking about, I know that went in, and you're talking about Coleman Woods, but that water coming down that valley is not only Coleman Woods, it's Biederman's, it's Von Risen's. In other words, if you go past the middle school up Bridgetown Road, make the bend, and go up to where Aston Oaks turns right, that ridge, everything from there runs past my house. Now, it's been, I think it was right after the first phase of Coleman Woods, that we had 2 inches of rain in 1 hour at 10 o'clock at night. There was water on both Morgan Streets, 6 inches deep, and clear up to the big trees at my house. And this really is scary and has to be addressed, because you say Cleves is flooded. If we get some of the rain that some of these communities is getting at the bank, when you pass BP, you're going to probably run into 3 feet of water. I'll tell you why that is. There's only 2 exits underneath that railroad that relieves Cleves, relieves that whole valley. And if I'm not mistaken, aren't they building 80 more houses in,
They are.
Von Rizzens? Every
Yep.
time you build a house, you got blacktop, you got house, it's all runoff. It all comes down the valley. So yes, I think that the retention ponds is really a serious problem and it needs to be addressed.
Thank you.
Well, I
Joe?
think, what was that, Dale for making that presentation.
Yes.
But it shouldn't be on just the specific 15 homeowners. There's no way that they can do it. Just,
Well,
it needs an HOA.
Well,
No,
maybe,
yes,
I mean, you got that whole
But the
valley.
whole thing.
Yes,
But
yeah.
just dealing with the Coleman Woods issue, I don't know how to, hopefully Chuck and we can figure it out, but the HOA has to go in for the price of your Netflix. You get it taken care of.
You're never gonna
So-
get that. And the only reason I say that is I own the first house on the corner of
Yeah.
Coleman Woods. And, Dries pulled out, didn't tell us, and people started complaining, we didn't know, started complaining at us online. Why aren't you taking care of that big opening? Why aren't you cutting the grass, et cetera, et cetera? It started a big firestorm online,
Yeah.
on Nextdoor, and I can guarantee you, every people spoke out. They said there better not be an HOA. Nobody's gonna support it. Nobody wants it. I hear ya,
Yeah,
but I don't see it happening.
Dries did a job on specific property owners up there.
They told us we were gonna have an HOA that we,
Well, the other gentleman, when I bought, who was, I was given the HOA information, the packet, signed the papers, and that was it.
Yeah, they made you sign that you would agree to be a part of it. We had to sign that. I remember that.
I don't know, I just remember signing the
Yeah.
information.
We did. They make you.
And it was a sheet that told you what you could do and what you couldn't
When you
do.
bought the house.
Yeah.
It's the one that formed. I'm just saying, I would be surprised that you can get enough support, and I think you have to have, I don't know, it might be like 75%, I can't
It's,
remember.
it's
been a while.
actually 51%,
But
but,
that people, because they were so against it.
and it's gotta be registered with the Secretary of State. I've already talked to them about it. I agree with you, it's probably never going to happen. However, this is a bigger problem than just Coleman Woods.
Oh, I understand.
And I think what Dale was trying to get across is what happens if that happens. In other words, what happens if it floods, it comes down in, it does the destruction. His concern is that the lawyers are gonna sue everybody they can sue. Because Joe and Melissa, they're not gonna just sit back and say, oh yeah, we're gonna pay you all the damages. They're gonna be suing all the other people that live and contribute to the water. And it's not just Coleman Woods. If you go over to Indian Brave, they have that retention pond. Somewhere in my phone, I have a video that shows that overflowing in the rain. It goes right under Edgefield, okay? It comes right down into Morgan Creek. And it was, it was bad. I've never seen water like this, except for maybe when you're in the Smoky Mountains and you have a big storm and all of a sudden it comes down. It's a problem. And I'm not blaming anybody for not talking about it, but if you're gonna be on top of what this village needs, you gotta do more than just simply sit, and I'm referring to Mr. Rayall, you gotta do more than just sit in his office. And that's generally what he does. So I can be on the record here. Hired in 2015, one evaluation. That was in 2015. No goals, no set hours, nothing. The council and mayor have not evaluated him one time since 2015. Now, with that said, that's just as much on the council as it is on him. Just as much on the mayors that have served here than it is on him. It's human nature to get by with as little as you can do. And quite frankly, that's what I've seen now. As little as he can do.
Well, he doesn't live here, for one.
I understand that.
So there's no vested interest.
I understand that.
He just got a raise.
Yeah, that's in that.
And I'm not
that's
just
in that
saying he's not
article.
doing his job, I'm just saying he doesn't live here.
Where does he live? What area?
I read it.
You know what, it doesn't matter.
I don't know.
Let me
It
explain
kinda
to you
does to me.
why it doesn't matter. But I drove for 12 years up to Bellbrook, Ohio, people never knew I lived down here, because I literally lived at that place. I was there before the teachers got there, I was there when the kids left.
I
after school.
understand that
You
you
can be
were dedicated.
invested in a place without having to live there.
I get it.
All right, the issue boils down, there's no accountability, and all I can say to you is, I didn't want to run at age 72 for mayor. I have no goals, that was never a goal of mine. But I do love this village. I moved here because I wanted to live in a village, I didn't want to live in an unincorporated area, and I certainly don't want to go back into Miami Township. So, with that said, I'd like to sort of turn this over to a more positive thing and have Bev come up and talk about our museum center and the contribution it makes and could make if we were doing things sort of the way they should be done.
Real quick, Dr. Lindell,
Yes.
Mayor, please, just.
No, he lives, this is the village administrator lives out in Milford, I think, somewhere on the east
The
side.
mayor has a east side now, at least now.
East side of town.
East side, yeah.
Don't leave.